I'm Naomi Benson, 29, the quiet cousin who works as a freelance photographer. The watch was already gone when I walked through the front door of Grandma's house that afternoon. It was the day of the family memorial brunch 48 hours after we buried her, and the house was unnaturally still, like grief had vacuumed out every human sound. There were faint clinks of silverware in the kitchen. Someone was coughing in the hallway, and outside the lace-curtained windows, birds chirped too cheerfully for the occasion. Everyone was already gathered. Plates of egg salad, cinnamon rolls, and deli meat cluttered the dining table. But nobody was eating. The conversations had the clipped rhythm of tension, polite tones hiding cold eyes. That's how it always was. In my family, grief didn't soften anyone, it made them meaner. I wasn't expected. Not really. When I stepped into the room, Aunt Jean looked up, blinked once, then went back to slicing fruit without a word. My cousin Lila whispered something to her husband and avoided my gaze. And my uncle, a man who once told me at age 12 that I'd never really belong because my dad left too soon, grunted and walked into the living room. I found an empty corner near the fireplace, gripping my camera bag like a shield. Grandma's antique watch, the one with the thin gold strap and mother-of-pearl face, had sat for decades in a blue velvet box on the corner shelf beside the framed family tree. That box was now empty, gaping open like a missing tooth. I scanned the room. Lila, always the actress, had her hands over her mouth like she was about to cry. Her voice cracked just enough when she said she didn't even say hi to Grandma when she visited last month. And now it's just gone. No one said my name, but their eyes did. I shifted my weight and tried to speak. I didn't even know it was missing. Uncle Marcus turned slowly toward me, arms crossed over his chest. Is that so? You were closest to her, weren't you? My throat tightened. My mouth opened, but the words caught like thorns. Then, from the hallway came a new sound, clicking heels, sharp and fast, followed by a voice that didn't belong in this house. Excuse me, are you Ms. Naomi Benson? Everyone turned. A woman in a navy blazer with a security badge and tablet stood in the doorway. She was followed by a tall man I recognized immediately, Mr. Aldridge, Grandma's lawyer. The room tensed like a coiled spring. Yes, I said, my voice small. The security woman gave a polite nod and tapped her tablet. We need you to confirm something. There's been an issue with a family heirloom reported stolen, but we reviewed security footage from Mrs. Benson's nursing home prior to her passing. She paused, then turned the screen toward the room. A silent clip played of Grandma, frail but smiling, handing me the watch. I was seated at her bedside. She touched my wrist. I hugged her. She closed my hand over the blue velvet box. Gasps broke out like popcorn. Someone dropped a plate. I didn't know she had that on camera. I whispered. Mr. Aldridge cleared his throat. Mrs. Benson left a letter to be read only if disputes arose. I have it here. He unfolded the handwritten note, and his voice filled the silence. To my Naomi, the only one who ever visited me just to listen, I want you to have my watch. You have my time now. Make it matter. No one moved. No one spoke. I felt every eye shift away from suspicion and toward realization. The shame in their faces wasn't loud. It was silent. But it was finally visible. If you've ever been through something like this where your truth was ignored until a screen had to speak for you, drop a comment or let me know where you're watching from. Hit like or subscribe if family drama ever made you feel invisible too. I didn't look at any of them. Not yet. I just felt the silence settle in. The real kind this time. The kind that comes right before everything changes. After the video ended and the letter was read aloud, the room stayed still like someone had unplugged every ego in the house. No one rushed to apologize. No one cried. Not even the ones who were pretending to 5 minutes earlier. That's the thing about family. Sometimes they don't say sorry. They just go quiet and hope the silence will make you forget they doubted you. I stood there, the velvet box still cradled in my hand, and I didn't know what to do next. Do I stay? Do I eat the cold eggs and act like I belong? Or do I leave before someone finds a new reason to accuse me of something I didn't do? It was Mr. Aldridge who finally broke the silence. He gave a short nod, offered a quiet, "You handled that with dignity," and slipped out the door like a man who's seen too many families fall apart over gold and guilt. I followed. I needed the air. The garden was still trimmed the way Grandma used to like it, but the wind had blown petals from her rose bushes across the stone path. I stood on the porch steps and let the sunlight warm my face. Only then did my fingers unclench from the watchbox. My hand ached, my palms sweaty. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but I didn't. I felt hollow, exposed, like a live wire hanging out of a wall finally seen, but still dangerous. Behind me, the screen door creaked. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. "You could have told us," Lila's voice said, thin and too sweet. "If she gave it to you, you could have just said something." I laughed once, short and sharp. "You wouldn't have believed me." Lila stepped onto the porch. "That's not fair." "No. What's not fair is being treated like a thief in my grandmother's house, by people who didn't even visit her when she got sick." She bristled at that. "You're always so dramatic. You act like you're the only one who loved her." I turned to face her. I didn't act. I showed up. Week after week. I helped her brush her hair when her hands shook too much to do it. I sat with her when she forgot what year it was, and I didn't post about it online or use it to score sympathy at brunch. Lila's mouth opened, then closed. She looked away. "People just thought it was weird. Okay, that you were always around, like you were trying to prove something." "I wasn't," I said. "I was just there." That word there hit her harder than anything else I could have said. Because she hadn't been. None of them had. Lila didn't say goodbye when she left. She just turned and disappeared back into the house, her heels clicking across the wooden floor like punctuation marks in a sentence that never made sense. I sat on the porch swing and opened the box again. The watch was even smaller than I remembered. The gold had dulled over the years, but the face was still elegant. Time paused. A gift not meant to impress, but to be kept close. I didn't wear it. Not yet. Later that week, the video somehow got online. I hadn't posted it. Mr. Aldridge wouldn't have, but someone had leaked the footage, maybe in a half-hearted attempt to smear me again. Instead, it went viral. Not because of the drama, but because of the tenderness in it. People commented things like, "This is what love looks like," the way she held her grandmother's hand. I'm crying. Families never see the quiet ones until it's too late. I was getting messages from strangers across the world, telling me how the clip reminded them of their own grandparents. A woman from Taiwan said it made her call her mother after a year of silence. A nurse from Ohio wrote, "You reminded me why I do what I do. Thank you." And still, not a single family member reached out to say, "We were wrong." The only message I got from someone in the family was from Aunt Jean. A single line. No greeting. No name. "You should have told us she gave you the watch." I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say, that I'd tried to show them who I was for years and they just looked the other way? That I spent Christmases alone, birthdays ignored, and every family gathering branded as the one who didn't fit in? No. That message didn't deserve an answer. I kept working. Photography had always been my refuge. When I was 16, Grandma bought me my first camera with her bingo winnings. Use it to make people feel seen, she'd said. I don't think she meant it as deeply as I took it. But I did. I took pictures of old hands and worn shoes and lovers kissing under broken umbrellas. I looked for stories in wrinkles, in sidewalks, in shadows. After the video, a nonprofit reached out. They wanted to commission me for a gallery installation, Invisible Moments. They said the footage showed more than just a family misunderstanding. It revealed how care looks when no one's watching. I said yes, and I knew exactly which photo to begin the series with. A still from the security footage, Grandma's hand on mine, the watch between us. Her eyes smiling while mine filled with tears. Weeks passed. I got busier. My inbox filled with interview requests and gallery prep details. But I didn't hear from the family, not even when the local paper wrote an article titled, "The Photographer Who Changed How We Talk About Elder Care." Then one morning, a letter arrived in the mailbox of my apartment. Handwritten, no return address. It was from my cousin Jack Lila's younger brother, the quiet one, the one who never really joined the family drama but always seemed to know more than he let on. He wrote, "Naomi, I saw the video." I cried. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. I always knew you were the real one. I just didn't know how to say it when it mattered. Thank you for loving her the way you did. I hope you keep making art that tells the truth. That letter meant more than all the comments, likes, or gallery invitations. It meant someone saw me. Maybe not everyone, but someone. And that's all I ever wanted. The gallery opened on a gray Thursday afternoon. Rain dusted the pavement in thin streaks, and the city had that metallic scent, wet asphalt. Distant car horns, cold coffee. It felt like the sky had dressed for the occasion, wrapped in the same muted tones I'd used in my portraits. I arrived early, alone, wearing the black blazer Grandma always complimented because she said it made me look like someone who's going places. The space wasn't fancy converted warehouse, creaky floorboards, industrial lighting, but it had soul. Bare brick walls framed rows of mounted prints, each lit softly by hanging bulbs. The title plaque at the front read, "Invisible Moments, A Lens on What We Miss," by Naomi Benson. There were 12 photographs. Each one captured quiet acts of presence, moments people rarely noticed until it was too late. A teenage boy holding his grandmother's pill organizer. A janitor straightening desks at 2 a.m. A woman feeding her disabled husband in the back row of a theater. And, at the center of the exhibit, the image that had started it all. Me and Grandma. That single frame from the security footage, still and silent, now frozen in time on a canvas. Visitors began trickling in. Strangers, mostly. A few local art lovers, some elderly folks, a young man in scrubs. They moved slowly, reading the captions, pausing in front of the larger pieces. I watched from a distance, sipping bad coffee out of a paper cup and pretending to be just another guest. It felt safer that way. Then I saw her. Lila. She stood in front of the central photo, her arms folded, eyes fixed on the image. Her hair was slicked back, her lipstick too red for the room. She looked like she didn't want to be there, but she also didn't want to leave. I froze. My heart thumped, loud and stupid. I thought about ducking into the staff room, but before I could move, she turned and saw me. She didn't smile. Neither did I. We stood in silence for a long beat. Then she walked over, heels echoing off the wood floor. "I didn't think you'd be here already," she said. "It's my show," I replied. "Right," she muttered, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I saw the write-up in the Chronicle. Figured I should come see it for myself." I nodded. "You didn't have to." "I know." Another silence. She glanced around the room, then back at me. "It's good. You're good. Thanks." Lila shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Look, Naomi, about the brunch. What I said. What we all said. I cut her off gently. Don't. Not here. She blinked. Surprised. You don't want an apology? I thought about it. I want you to feel it. Not say it. Her eyes flickered. That's harsh. No. It's honest. That's what this is. All of it. I gestured to the room. The photos. The soft shadows on the brick. Lila looked down at her shoes. We thought you were just showing off, trying to be the good granddaughter. I wasn't. I know, she said quietly. And somehow, that felt closer to the truth than any apology ever could. The show ran for 6 weeks. Each weekend brought new visitors. Some cried. Some just stood silently for long minutes. One older woman clutched my hand and said, "You've given voice to the kind of love no one photographs." Thank you. I started getting emails from other galleries, small spaces in Vermont, Oregon, even one in Berlin asking to display the series. It was overwhelming. Beautiful, but also lonely. The higher I rose in recognition, the further I drifted from the only people who shared my blood. None of the family came to the show again, except Jack. He showed up late one Sunday afternoon, just as I was packing up a few extra prints. He was in jeans, a windbreaker, hair still wet from the rain. "You really did it," he said, standing in front of Grandma's portrait. I smiled. "You're the only one who said that and meant it." Jack shrugged. Lila meant it. She just didn't know how to say it. She never did. He took a breath. There's something else. I looked at him, heart tightening. He pulled a folded envelope from his coat. Found this in Grandma's storage unit. It had your name on it. I figured you should have it. I took it slowly. It was sealed. The paper brittle and yellowed slightly at the edges. My name was written in her shaky, slanted cursive. I didn't open it right away. Jack stayed by my side, quiet. "You know," he said softly, "she used to brag about you, to the nurses, said her granddaughter was going to make people feel seen, that you didn't chase attention, you captured it." I swallowed a lump in my throat. I didn't know that. She kept it close. Some things aren't for everyone. That night, I opened the letter. Grandma's voice poured out in ink. "Naomi, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer here, and someone finally gave you what I couldn't hand to you in person. You were always my mirror, quiet, but full of depth. People never noticed you because they didn't know how to look. But I did. You gave me more time than anyone, more than I deserved. I watched you grow, unseen by others, and I knew you would turn pain into something beautiful. The watch was never about value. It was about legacy, not money, not gold, time. And you know how to hold time gently. Forgive them, if you can, but don't wait for them to understand you. Keep seeing, keep showing. Love you always." "Grandma," I cried. Not loud, but deep. The kind of cry that starts from your ribs and pushes out slowly, like your body is releasing years of weight you didn't know you were carrying. I framed the letter. It hung beside the central photo for the rest of the exhibit. Months passed. The buzz faded. That's how the world works. Today's emotional story is tomorrow's forgotten scroll. But something had shifted in me. I no longer flinched when people asked about my family. I no longer hid behind work. I even reached out to Jack once in a while, just to talk, to keep some thread of connection. But the others, I let them be. Not out of bitterness, but peace. Some relationships aren't broken. They were never whole to begin with. I wore the watch on days that felt heavy: gallery openings, travel flights, anniversaries. I never told anyone, but I'd touch it before every show, whisper a thank you, and step into the room like I had someone walking with me. And maybe I did. Because in every quiet photograph, every unseen gesture I captured, I felt her hand on mine. Still, a year after the gallery opened, I found myself back at Grandma's house. It wasn't planned. I was driving back from a shoot upstate, and the highway exit felt like it pulled me off course. The property hadn't changed much. The shutters were still slightly crooked, and the garden had gone wild roses curling out like they missed her. I parked across the street and just stared at the porch for a while, the one where she used to wave at every passing car even when she didn't know the people inside. Someone else lived there now, a young couple, I guessed, judging by the toys scattered in the yard and the baby swing on the front tree. But for those few minutes, sitting alone in my car, it still felt like her place, still smelled, in memory, of lemon floor polish and lavender powder. The past didn't let go easy. I didn't go up to the door. I wasn't ready for that kind of collision with time. Instead, I reached into the glove compartment, pulled out my camera, and took one single photo of the porch, the roses, the swing, the fading house numbers, a place holding on to stories no one else would ever understand. I named the photo The House That Held Her and added it to my next series without telling anyone where it came from. I wish I could say that everything changed after the exhibit, that the family apologized, reconnected, became whole again. But real life doesn't write clean endings. There were no reunions, no group dinners, just smaller ripples. Uncle Marcus sent me a message 6 months later. Short, blunt. Didn't see it then. See it now. You got guts. That was it. No hello. No name. Just that. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because some bridges don't need rebuilding, they just need to stay where they burned. Instead, I focused on the work. My next project was a documentary-style photo series on caregivers, those who operate in silence, in shadows. I visited hospice nurses, home aides, daughters caring for mothers with dementia. I interviewed people who spent their lives pouring themselves into others without applause. Their stories echoed mine in ways I couldn't have scripted. One woman, Letitia, cared for her blind brother for 20 years. When I asked her why she never left, never took a break, she said, "Some people are too precious to leave alone. That's not duty. That's devotion." That line stuck with me. I used it as the subtitle for the exhibit, Too Precious to Leave Alone. It toured in 4 cities, quietly. No viral video this time, no press swarm. Just rooms full of people nodding slowly in front of black and white portraits. Strangers placing their hands on their chests, remembering someone they hadn't thought of in years. And I realized that was enough. One evening, while wrapping up an editing session, I got a call from Jack. He never called without texting first, so I knew something was off. "Hey," I answered. There was a pause. "Then it's Mom." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "She's sick. Pancreatic cancer. It's advanced." I didn't speak. He continued. "She's asking about you." I blinked. "Lila." "Yeah. She keeps saying she wants to see you, that there's something she wants to give you." My first instinct was to say no, to protect the quiet peace I'd built after so much noise. But something inside me, maybe Grandma's voice, maybe my own healing, said go. I visited her a week later. She was in hospice care, pale and thin, her once flashy makeup replaced with gentle moisturizer and dry lips. The woman who once dominated brunches and cut me down with polished remarks now lay tucked under soft blankets. Hands trembling. "Naomi," she said when I walked in. Her voice was thin as paper. "Hi, Lila. You came. I wasn't sure I would." She nodded faintly. "I wouldn't have blamed you." I sat beside her, unsure of what to do with my hands. The silence between us felt like it stretched back decades. "I wanted to say something," she whispered. "Not sorry, I am. But I wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For being her person. For loving her when I couldn't, or didn't know how." I stared at her. "Why now?" She gave a small, broken smile. "You see things we miss. Always have. I see it now. Took me too long." She reached to the side table and pulled something small from a drawer. It was a silver pendant on a chain. Grandma's initials etched on the back. She gave this to me when I turned 20. Told me to pass it on when I met someone in the family who understood what love costs. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled as I took it. "Naomi," Lila said softly, "I think you've been paying love's price for years." She passed 3 weeks later. I didn't attend the full memorial. I arrived early, laid a single photo on her casket, an old image of her and Grandma when they were kids, hair in matching braids, mud on their dresses. Then I left before the crowd arrived. Some losses aren't loud. They just make space. In the months that followed, I started teaching part-time at a local community center, a beginner's photography course free for anyone who signed up. Most of my students were older women, single mothers, and 2 retired mechanics with Parkinson's. One day, I brought in Grandma's watch, set it on the table, asked them all to photograph it from their point of view. The results were stunning. One shot it as a symbol of time slipping away, another as a beacon of resilience. A third used blur and grain to show how memories distort. That night, I realized something. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what people learn to see because of you. One evening, I sat on my apartment balcony as the city blinked beneath me. The pendant Lila gave me hung from my neck. The watch was on my wrist. My camera sat beside a cup of lukewarm tea. I thought of Grandma, of the stolen time we reclaimed, of the silence that used to follow me into every room, and how now, when people look at my work, they see something true. I still get emails, quiet ones, people saying things like, "Your photo made me call my dad again." I finally understood why my sister did what she did. Thank you for reminding me to show up. Sometimes, that's all we need. A reminder to show up, even when no one's watching. Especially then. So I keep showing up, camera in hand, heart open, eyes wide. The spring after Lila passed, I was invited to speak at a university photography symposium. The theme was memory and light. Most of the other speakers were professors or commercial prose people who had shot for big magazines or ran studios with interns and agents. I felt out of place, still wore my usual black blazer, still kept Grandma's watch fastened tight on my wrist like armor. I wasn't a speaker, I was a listener by nature, but the organizers insisted, and so I stood in front of a softly lit auditorium, with a slideshow remote in one hand and my heart pounding in the other. I never meant to become a photographer. I began. I just wanted to hold on to things other people forgot. The screen behind me showed the first photo I'd ever taken Grandma in her floral nightgown, sitting at the kitchen table, peeling an orange. She didn't know I was watching. That was the moment I realized some of the most important things only exist when you look closely. The audience was silent. Not the bored kind of silence. The listening kind. I spoke for 20 minutes. Not about gear or editing techniques, but about presence. About silence. About the difference between being looked at and being seen. Afterward, a young woman approached me in the hallway. She had a shaved head, gold hoop earrings, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much too young. I just wanted to say, my grandma raised me. She passed during COVID. No one believed how close we were, 'cause we weren't blood. Your story made me feel less crazy. I gave her my contact card. Email me. I'd love to see your work sometime. That became a habit. Quietly collecting these stories, letting them live somewhere beyond a comment box. One night, I created an anonymous submission portal on my website. I called it the Still Frame Project, a place where anyone could upload an image and write one sentence what moment they captured, and why they never forgot it. Within a week, over 200 submissions came in. An image of a boy tying his sister's shoes at a train station, a grandmother's hands lighting Sabbath candles, a man holding his dog's paw on the day he had to say goodbye. I cried at nearly every one. So I decided to curate them not for a gallery, not for press, but for the people who submitted. A digital wall, open to anyone, where their invisible moments could live in full color. It felt like the truest work I'd ever done. Meanwhile, the family stayed silent. There were no more gatherings, no awkward brunches, no gossiping around ham platters or passive-aggressive comments about who got what in the will. Uncle Marcus sold the lake cabin. Jack and his wife moved out of state. Aunt Jean relocated to Florida and stopped sending Christmas cards. What was left of the Benson family had scattered like dandelion seeds, each of us drifting in different directions. No longer tethered by obligation or tradition, just fragments. Sometimes. I wondered if it was my fault. If telling the truth visibly, publicly had cracked the thin ice we'd all been skating on for years. But then I'd remember the ice was already breaking. I had just stopped pretending it wasn't. And the truth didn't ruin the family. It revealed it. One summer evening, I received an invitation in the mail, handwritten envelope, no return address. Inside was a formal card bordered in gold foil. You are cordially invited to the reopening of the Riverbend Retirement Center's Memory Garden in honor of Mrs. Eloise Benson. Saturday, 11 a.m. Light refreshments served. I blinked. The Memory Garden. Grandma's favorite place at the home, the one with the crooked bird bath, white benches, and rows of rose bushes named after donors. She used to wheel herself out there every afternoon, weather permitting, just to watch the sparrows. I hadn't been back since she passed, but something about the way the card was signed made me pause. No name, no title, just, she wanted you there. So I went. Riverbend looked almost the same. White vinyl siding, nurses in lilac scrubs, the faint smell of lemon disinfectant and soft food. But the garden was transformed. A new arbor framed the entrance, vines already climbing its sides. The benches had been repainted, and a small stone plaque now sat beneath the largest rose bush, engraved with words I recognized immediately. You have my time now. Make it matter. E. Benson. My throat tightened. Mr. Aldridge spotted me from across the garden and waved. He looked older, but still sharp in his blue blazer and polished shoes. I'm glad you came, he said, stepping beside me. You organized this. He nodded. Your grandmother left instructions in a side letter with her estate. She didn't want a statue. She wanted something that grew. I knelt beside the plaque, touched the cool stone. She'd love this. She also left a donor request, to name the garden after her, but only if you approved. I looked up, confused. Why me, Mr. Aldridge smiled. Because you were the only one who showed up. I stayed in the garden long after the others left, took photos of the petals, the plaque, the way the light hit the bench where she used to sit. I caught a sparrow mid-flight, wings stretched like an exhale. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like a door opening, one I didn't need to walk through immediately, but one I now knew was there. That evening, I uploaded a new photo to the Still Frame Project, one of the rosebush, with the plaque just visible in the corner. Caption: For the woman who taught me time was love made visible. Weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a dusty VHS tape labeled 1999 Naomi and Grandma Christmas. I stared at it for a long time. No one in the family owned a VHS player anymore, except maybe me. I'd found one at a thrift shop years ago for a photo series on obsolete technology. It still worked. I plugged it in, pressed play. The screen flickered. A younger version of me, maybe 4 years old, sat in Grandma's lap in front of the fireplace, unwrapping a camera-shaped toy. She helped me hold it up to my eye. There. Her voice crackled. Now show me what you see. The clip ended. I rewound it, played it again, and again. Tears welled as I whispered along with the line. Now show me what you see. That's what I've been doing. From the beginning. And I'm not done yet. The video from that Christmas morning replayed in my mind for weeks. I even recorded it digitally, uploaded it to a private folder titled First Light. It felt like a secret message, one that had waited over 2 decades to reach me. Her voice in that moment wasn't just talking to a child holding a plastic camera. She was talking to the woman I would become. She was telling me, before I could even understand, what I was meant to do. So I started a new project. Not for a gallery, not for clients, just for myself. I called it What We See. I reached out to people who'd submitted to the still frame project, asking if they'd be willing to be photographed in the places where their memories lived. Not just the places that looked beautiful, but the places that meant something: a childhood kitchen, an old church pew, the back porch of a house that had long since been sold. I told them, don't clean it, don't decorate it, let me see it the way it is. One woman in Minnesota took me to her late husband's shed. Dusty workbench, rusted tools, a single flannel shirt still hanging on a peg. Another man led me into a rundown diner where his mother used to work. He sat in the corner booth, ordered 2 coffees, one for him, one for her, and let me photograph the silence across from him. In each frame, I tried not to direct. I waited, observed. Let the quiet bloom until the real moment emerged. A twitch of the mouth, a thumb brushing against a frayed hem, the way their eyes looked slightly off camera, as if trying to summon someone who wasn't there. It was the most emotionally draining work I'd ever done, and the most sacred. I didn't advertise the series. I didn't watermark the photos. I simply posted one each week, along with a line or two from the person's story. The account grew, not in virality, but in depth. People lingered, commented not with emojis, but with paragraphs. I haven't spoken to my brother in 12 years, but this made me pick up the phone. I finally feel like someone understands what missing someone really feels like. Your lens is a mirror. That one stayed with me. Your lens is a mirror. It was true, because when I looked through it, I wasn't just seeing them, I was seeing me. Then, one afternoon in early autumn, I got a call from the nursing home. Not Riverbend, a different one, in a neighboring town. Ms. Benson, a soft voice asked, "We have a resident here, Mr. Harold Jenkins, who specifically requested we contact you. He saw your Memory Garden series online. I don't know a Mr. Jenkins. That's what he said you'd say. But he asked that you come anyway. Said he has something for you." Normally, I would have hesitated, but something in her tone, it wasn't pushy. It was gentle, like someone holding a fragile truth between their hands. I agreed. The facility was modest, clean but plain, no art on the walls, just laminated notices and faded seasonal decorations. A nurse met me in the hallway. He doesn't speak much, but when he does, it's usually about his wife, or about something he should have done years ago. I entered the room quietly. He sat in a chair by the window, thin, pale, white stubble on his chin. He turned slowly as I stepped in. His eyes were watery blue, and for a moment, he looked surprised. "I thought you'd be older," he said, voice scratchy. "I get that a lot," I replied. He chuckled softly. "She was right. You do see people." "Who is my sister?" He paused. "Eloise." My heart stopped. "Your sister." He nodded. "I was her younger brother. Barely spoke to her for the last 20 years. Not after the argument. I don't even remember what it was about now. Something stupid." I took a seat across from him. My fingers gripped the camera bag in my lap. "She used to talk about you," he said. "Said you were the only one who visited without needing something. Said you carried stories in your eyes." I couldn't speak. I wrote to her once. Never mailed it. But after she passed, I started looking you up. Found the footage, the watch, the photos. I knew it was you. He leaned forward and picked up a small wooden box from the table beside him. "I made this. For her. A long time ago. Never gave it to her. But I'd like you to have it." I opened the box. Inside was a simple wooden frame, hand-carved, with a single word etched at the bottom. "Seen." He looked at me, eyes shining. "You made her feel seen. Now it's your turn." I sat with him for a long time after that. Didn't take a photo, didn't ask questions. Just listened. Sometimes, presence is the only lens that matters. Back home, I placed the frame on my writing desk. No photo inside. Just the word, "Seen." It echoed louder than any image ever could. Months later, I received a legal envelope. Mr. Jenkins had passed. In his will, he'd left a donation to the still frame project and requested that a tree be planted in the memory garden in his name. No plaque, no ceremony, just roots. That winter, I flew to Berlin for a small exhibit. During the Q&A, a student asked, "How do you know when a moment is worth capturing?" I paused. "If it holds silence, it holds truth," I said. "The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be filled. That's the one." After the event, I wandered the snowy streets alone, found a small bookstore, bought a blank journal, and wrote on the first page, "The ones who are quiet often carry the most color." That became the title of my next exhibit. Not flashy, not loud, just honest. Years from now, I hope someone finds my photos tucked in an attic box. I hope they see not just faces, but feelings. The curve of a laugh mid-break, the shadow of a tear not yet fallen, the tremble in a hand reaching for something no longer there. I hope they understand what I was trying to do. Not capture beauty, but hold time, and whisper back, "You were seen." I didn't plan to return to Riverbend that spring, but the garden called me. Maybe it was the way the early crocuses pushed through the thawed soil. Or maybe it was the dream I kept having, Grandma sitting on the bench under the arbor, patting the space beside her like she was waiting for me to sit. In the dream, she didn't say anything. She never had to. Her silence had always said more than words. So I drove there one morning, camera in my bag, no plan in mind. The garden had grown fuller since the dedication. The rose bushes were blooming out of season. Some things don't follow calendars when love's involved. The arbor had a new coat of paint. A laminated photo of Grandma and me from the security footage had been tacked to the visitors board, labeled Legacy Moment of the Month. I sat on the bench and listened. A bird trilled in the tree above me. A nurse laughed softly through a window. Somewhere, someone wheeled a cart of meals that smelled like applesauce and canned carrots. The ordinary sounds of life continuing in a place where endings happened every day. "Excuse me," a voice said behind me. I turned. It was a young girl, maybe 16, in jeans too big and a hoodie that swallowed her small frame. She held a beat-up disposable camera in her hand, the kind that required winding after every shot. "You're Naomi, right?" I nodded, gently surprised. "My school showed us your garden in ethics class. They said you made people feel remembered." "I try," I said. She sat down beside me, careful not to sit too close. "My Nana used to be here. She died last year. I couldn't visit her much. My parents said it was too hard on me." "Was it?" She nodded, but not visiting felt worse. I looked at her camera. "You like photography, I think so. It helps when my head gets loud." That made me smile. She pulled something from her pocket, a photo, small, slightly bent, printed at a pharmacy. It showed her Nana sitting in the garden, blanket on her lap, birds fluttering in the background. The image was slightly overexposed, but the warmth in it was real. "I took this the last time I saw her," she whispered. "It's beautiful," I said. "It's full of presence." She looked down. "Sometimes I feel like it's all I have." I took a breath. Then I said, "Would you like to add it to the garden's wall? Make it part of the legacy." Her eyes lit up like someone had handed her a voice she didn't know she had. "Really, really." We walked inside together. I helped her tape the photo beside mine. She wrote one line beneath it. I remember the way her hands felt. Even now, when we stepped back outside, she hugged me quickly, awkwardly, sincerely. "I want to be like you," she said. I almost said, "No, be better." But instead, I said, "Then don't stop looking." Later that month, I received an email from a woman in Louisiana. She was a hospice worker, and her patient had one last wish to have her photo taken in her wedding dress, even though she hadn't worn it in 60 years. She says she wants someone to see her as a bride again. The email read, "Not a patient, not a ghost." I booked the flight. The woman's name was Mabel, 93, with bones like bird wings and a smile that still held flirtation. Her dress had been kept in a box under her bed, yellowed and delicate, but still intact. Her nurses helped her into it. I knelt down, set up soft lights, and asked, "How do you want to be seen?" She looked into the lens, eyes sharp, like I never left that chapel. I clicked the shutter. The image showed a woman who refused to be forgotten, who dared to claim youth one final time. It became the most shared photo I'd ever taken. Not because it was technically perfect, but because it held something we all feared losing, the right to be remembered as we truly were. When Mabel passed, her family asked me to speak at her service. I didn't read a eulogy. I showed them her photo, projected on a large screen in the chapel. Then I said, "This is who she was, and she never stopped being her." That was enough. By now, the still frame project had grown beyond me. Other photographers joined, writers, painters. We started hosting community story nights, small gatherings where people brought one photo, printed or digital, and shared the story behind it. We didn't judge. We didn't rank. We just listened. One night, a man brought in a blurry photo of a dog sitting beside a grave. "This is the only photo I have of him not barking," he said. "He sat there all day after my wife died. I think he knew." Another night, a woman brought in a Polaroid of her daughter painting her toenails before prom. She didn't want a date, she said proudly. She wanted pink glitter. The room always fell silent after the stories, but it wasn't grief-heavy. It was sacred. I'd look around and think, this is what Grandma wanted me to do with her time. One rainy afternoon, I returned to the studio to find a letter taped to the door. No name, no address, just folded parchment with a pressed flower inside a daisy, dried and fragile. The letter said, "Naomi." I was at the brunch that day. I didn't speak up. I watched you stand there, accused, while the truth sat in your eyes. I could have defended you. I didn't. I've carried that for years. But I also saw what you did after. You turned pain into invitation. You made the forgotten unforgettable. This flower is from the garden. She planted daisies for your mother when she was a baby. I thought you should have one. Thank you for not closing your lens on us forever. A cousin who should have known better. I didn't try to guess who sent it. Some gifts are more powerful when they remain anonymous. I pressed the flower between the pages of my journal. Now, every photo I take carries a fingerprint of all these moments. Every shutter click echoes the voice I heard as a child. Now show me what you see. Sometimes I photograph joy, sometimes ache, but always truth. Because someone, somewhere, needs to feel that what they're living isn't invisible, that someone sees them, that they matter, that they are remembered not because of what they left behind, but because of how fully they were here. And when people ask me what it means to photograph a life, I tell them it's not about capturing, it's about honoring. I always thought closure would come in the form of a conversation that one day, someone in the family would look me in the eye and say it plainly, "We were wrong about you." That never happened. And eventually, I realized it didn't need to, because I'd already answered that ache in my own way, not with revenge, not even with distance, but with quiet persistence. I kept showing up, kept witnessing what others overlooked. But the past has a way of knocking when you least expect it. It was a Tuesday morning in late autumn. The sky was bruised gray. I was organizing prints for a small charity auction when my phone rang. The screen flashed Aunt Jean. I froze. That name hadn't popped up on my phone in over 3 years. I debated ignoring it, but something curiosity maybe made me swipe to answer. Naomi. Her voice was thinner than I remembered. Hesitant. "Hi," I said. Careful. Not cold, but guarded. There was a pause. "I wasn't sure you'd pick up." "I almost didn't." She sighed. "I get that." More silence. Then, I saw the article in Heritage and Light about your memory garden. I didn't know about all of it, not until recently. I didn't exactly send out holiday newsletters. A weak laugh. "No, I guess not." She cleared her throat. "I'm moving to assisted living. Found a few boxes when I was packing. Thought you might want them." "What kind of boxes? Old family photos?" "Some letters. Things your mom kept in her room. There's even a tape. You know, the kind you needed a camcorder to play." I paused. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who'd know what to do with them." That sentence sat heavy in the space between us. Not an apology, but maybe the closest thing she could offer. "All right," I said. "You can send them. I'd rather give them to you. In person." I hesitated. Then, softly, "Okay." We met 2 days later, at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. She looked older, thinner, but the same red scarf looped around her neck told me she hadn't entirely changed. I brought no expectations, only space. She handed over 2 worn cardboard boxes tied with twine. On top was a faded photo of my mother as a child, freckles, crooked smile, hand reaching toward the lens. "I didn't know she kept so much." I murmured. "She saved everything," Aunt Jean said, "even things she never looked at again." We sat in a quiet corner, talked not about the brunch, not about the watch, not about the years of silence, but about small things. How Grandma used to hum to herself while watering plants. How Mom once taped a note to her mirror that said, "Smile. Someone loves you even if you forgot who." That line gutted me. Then Jean reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a letter. "I found this taped to the back of a frame. It's for you. From your mom." My heart thudded, hands trembling. I unfolded it. "Naomi, I don't know how old you'll be when you find this. Maybe you'll still be that shy girl who hides behind the camera. Maybe you'll be the woman I always believed you'd grow into, brave and precise and too kind for this world. If I'm gone, I need you to know I saw you. Even when I was hurting. Even when I pulled away. You were the light at the edge of every room, the one who always noticed the unspoken. Don't let them tell you who you are. Show them, over and over, through your work, through your stillness, through the way you keep loving even when it's hard. You are not invisible. Love you more than I ever managed to say. Mom, I didn't cry in that cafe. Not right away. Instead, I stared at the letter while the world around us carried on, cups clinking, espresso steaming, strangers scrolling their phones like nothing had just changed. But inside me, something had. I had needed those words since I was 10 years old. Since the day my mom got sick and the laughter left the house, I never thought they would come. And yet, here they were, folded, faded, real. I looked at Aunt Jean. She wasn't crying either, but her shoulders had softened. She wrote it the week she went into hospice. She said it needed to find you later. I nodded, too full to speak. Later. I finally understood what later meant. I spent the next few weeks cataloging the boxes. They were a time capsule birthday cards from the 90s, scribbled grocery lists, grainy photos of summer trips I had forgotten. One photo stopped me cold, me at age 7. Standing beside Grandma and Mom, both women smiling, both hands on my shoulders like parentheses around a sentence. That photo became the centerpiece of my next project, Lineage of Light. It wasn't a formal exhibit, just a printed zine. 40 pages, family photos, letters, side-by-side comparisons of old images and the modern work they inspired. I added notes under each, a sentence about what that photo taught me. Page 12. Grandma's hands taught me that love doesn't need to announce itself. Page 19. Mom's mirror note reminded me that survival can be silent. Page 33. This image taught me how grief is inherited, but healing can be too. I printed 200 copies, sent them out to subscribers of the Still Frame project. Included a note that said, "This one's personal. Thank you for watching me grow." The response was quiet but overwhelming. Letters poured in. "You just helped me forgive someone who'll never say sorry." I read this with my daughter. We cried together. First time in years. Your story helped me believe mine was worth remembering too. One night, while sorting through the last of the photos, I came across a Polaroid of me at 4 years old, holding a toy camera up to Grandma's face. She was laughing, her mouth open wide, joy so unfiltered it almost glowed. On the back, written in Grandma's handwriting, she already sees what others miss. I smiled. I took that image, scanned it, printed it on archival paper, and framed it next to my desk. Not as a reminder of where I started, but of who believed in me before I had proof. It's been 5 years since the day I was accused of stealing. The watch still sits on my wrist on important days. The velvet box is tucked into the drawer beside my journal, and the security footage, the clip that exposed a lie and revealed a legacy, still lives in a quiet folder on my computer. Untouched. Sometimes I open it, not for validation, but to remember what it took to stand still while the world doubted you and to not flinch. To stay quiet and let the truth walk into the room by itself. People often ask me, "Do you think they're sorry now?" I say, "Maybe." But I'm no longer waiting for them to admit it, because the world saw what they refused to, and more importantly, I finally did too. The last time I visited the memory garden, it was quiet. No event, no ceremony, no press. Just me, walking between the rose bushes with a thermos of tea in one hand and my camera in the other. The garden had changed in subtle ways. Someone had added wind chimes to the arbor, soft brass ones that sang low in the breeze. A new plaque had joined the one for Grandma, a small stone carved simply with Harold Jenkins. Below it, a line I hadn't approved but smiled at when I saw it. He saw someone who saw him. I sat on the familiar bench and took a deep breath. The morning air was cool, clean, the kind of weather Grandma loved. I remember how she used to close her eyes on days like this and just breathe, as if presence itself was prayer. For a long while, I didn't take any photos. I just watched. An older woman helped her husband down the garden path, guiding his steps like choreography learned over years. A nurse in lavender scrubs pushed a patient's chair and hummed a hymn I vaguely recognized. A teenage boy sat cross-legged under the dogwood tree, sketching birds in a tattered notebook. Nobody posed, nobody performed. They just existed. That's all I ever wanted, to capture the beauty of people simply being unfiltered, unapologetic, undeniably real. When the moment felt right, I lifted the camera and took one frame. Click. And that was enough. Later that week, I received a small envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single printed photo, not one I had taken. It was grainy, probably from an old camcorder, printed on glossy paper. It showed me age 12, standing beside Grandma in the kitchen. I was washing dishes, hands in sudsy water. She was drying them, laughing at something I had just said. Our heads tilted the same way, our smiles curved in sync. On the back, someone had written in cursive, "Legacy isn't what we leave, it's what we notice." For Naomi, I kept the photo in my wallet. Some truths are too precious to leave at home. The still frame project eventually became a foundation. We offered grants to photographers capturing stories of memory, care, and resilience. We ran workshops in schools, libraries, nursing homes. No fanfare, no big sponsors, just stories, held with care. People still send me letters. Some are long, some are just a sentence or two. Your work made me look at my grandfather's hands differently. My mother was always quiet. You made me realize she was never absent, just steady. You gave me the courage to believe that being unseen isn't the same as being unworthy. And every time I read them, I remember the moment it all began. A funeral brunch, an empty velvet box, a room full of suspicion, and then truth, undeniable and unflinching, stepping into the light, not to defend me, but to reveal me. I don't revisit that day often, not out of pain, but because I no longer need to. The people who matter saw me. The ones who couldn't were never really looking. Sometimes, late at night, I sit at my desk with Grandma's watch ticking beside me. I close my eyes and hear her voice. You have my time now. Make it matter. I think I have. Not through fame, not through applause, but by bearing witness, by capturing the quiet, the overlooked, the sacred and strange and small, by standing in silence long enough for someone else's truth to speak. And in doing so, I found my own. Not loud, but lasting. Not glamorous, but real. Because the greatest thing we can give each other isn't advice or answers or validation. It's attention. It's presence. It's the courage to say, I see you. I still see you. I always will.